Jacob.
I'm Yuri.
And we're going for a drive.
2020 Hyundai Palisade.
Hyundai invited us to the launch in Idaho, so shout out to y'all in Idaho. Idaho.
Idaho.
This is the subscription break for Idaho. We're stuck in traffic.
Fix your roads faster, maybe on another day. Idaho. So the Palisade was designed side by side with the Telluride.
Yes, it's the Kia counterpart. So we recently drove the Telluride and we're going to be making a lot of comparisons to that car, so watch that video as well. But first, horsepower and torque.
Horsepower and torque.
291 horsepower, 262 pound-feet of torque from a 3.8 liter V6 naturally aspirated, just like the one in the Telluride.
And you can only get V6 across the board. There are no other engine options.
That's right.
And since you probably watched our Telluride video, let's start with the looks.
That's the biggest thing that I'm not sure about between these two vehicles.
Let's start with the grille.
I like the one on the lower trim better than the top trim.
Yeah, it's kind of got a different pattern, but the big thing is the size and
Yeah,
the
it's
shape.
huge. It is massive.
No one's making X7 jokes though.
But that's because there was no previous one that they could kind of reference from, like previous BMWs.
Yeah, but this is the same shape as the Kona. It looks like a Rolls-Royce-ish Kona grille.
I do agree. This does look a lot more luxurious than, say, the Telluride.
But where the Telluride shines is those great amber running lights.
But let's stick to this. We will talk about the Telluride after.
What does this have for headlights?
This has these things called the crocodile eyes.
Yeah, that's the new style they came up with. I totally get it because Crocodile's got the little slit that goes up.
I do get it too.
I think it looks really cool, and then it gets like a disconnect through the bumper.
They get full points for doing something different.
Yeah, 100%. And then it's still the Kona style, where you've got your headlights below, and then you've got the top thing with the signals.
And I like that they're doing different front ends for pretty much all of their models, just relatively similar to each other.
Yeah, so even though we don't like the look of the new Elantra sedan, it's different. It's got like triangles, where this has a completely different shape as well.
So at least they are trying things, and they're not just making one boring thing across the board. Mazda. Sorry.
Except for the Miata.
Yeah.
Next important thing is the side profile.
I think that's my favorite angle for this whole thing.
I feel like they got a lot from the Cadillac Escalade and Tahoe and Yukon.
Well, because they had to make this like big and bold.
And I think most of my opinion from that comes from the chrome line. It comes, I think, from the top and down, where I think the Escalade goes from the window line and up.
And you said this looked like a shark fin to you?
Well, they called it the reverse hockey stick, but I think it looks more like a shark fin. Do you think this looks better than Escalade side profile?
Hard to say. I think they're very similar. I do think this looks a little better because that's just pure box. This has a little bit more angle to it.
So then that leads us to body lines.
There are some pretty decent body lines on this, and they are tricking me again with the fender flares.
Kind of like the Veloster that goes out, in, and out, so it's not actually flares.
Yeah, you have to look at it up close from an angle, and then you see that there's no actual flare there. It's just body lines.
But I don't really think it stands out too much because the paint colors are all pretty dark and subtle.
But this does look better in darker colors, again, like the Telluride.
But it might look better in a metallic-y Mercedes kind of color. You know how every Mercedes pops?
Yeah, that's true.
This doesn't pop.
It doesn't. And I think the wheels on the top trim really suit the car very well. I don't like the wheels in the lower trims.
I think across the board for every three-row SUV, the wheels all kind of suck.
Yeah, that's true.
But what is the Continental recommended tire for the Hyundai Palisade?
The Continental Cross Contact LX20.
And just like the Telluride, we need to move to the back end, which is the most controversial part. So the taillight pattern is completely different, and we've got a white stripe next to it, kind of like the front headlight view.
Yeah, I think I do like the back end of the Palisade more than the Telluride.
And I like the back end of the Telluride more because the taillights have more of a distinct shape. And then if we move down to the exhaust tips, where do we land on that?
We've got triangle-ish ones. I do like them.
Yeah, each tip is 4 beveled sides that matches the hole where the exhaust tip comes out through.
And then we have like a chrome diffuser type thing. It looks all right. Chrome, I don't know. I'm not too sure of.
But I think this is supposed to be luxury, so the chrome suits it.
Exactly. This is definitely the more luxurious car between this and the Telluride.
Yeah, especially inside. Let's show a quick clip of this interior. And back to the looks. On the count of 3, what do you like more, the Hyundai Palisade or the Kia Telluride for looks? 1, 2, 3.
Telluride.
Okay.
It just looks more sporty. It just looks better overall. It stands out more. Those headlights just seal the deal.
But I think this big, huge grille really brings it a long way. Like, it looks luxurious because of that.
I do like how this one looks, though. It looks more imposing, but it's definitely more luxurious.
I think the best way to sum it up, if you were going to put huge wheels on both of them, the Telluride would get gigantic off-road wheels, and this would get very big, luxurious wheels.
Like chrome 28s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that on this one. Now let's talk about the power and the handling. I'm going to floor it for you. Takes a while to downshift, and it's not very quick.
The scariest part of this car is trying to pass people on 2-lane roads.
And this is the exact same drivetrain that's in the Telluride, and we also thought that was fairly slow. So it's fine from a launch, from going from 0, but when you're on the highway, near highway speeds, passing people is quite slow.
And then how about handling?
Handling's pretty good. It's like surprisingly good for the size of this thing. Again, just like the Telluride, I don't really notice a difference between both of them. I would have to drive them like back to back, literally get out of one, go back in the other, and then back in the first one.
Yeah, you can't really tell the difference, but we did drive through Cliche, Idaho.
Yeah, I think it was called Hell's Gulch. So if you live near there, let us know. Let's talk about the transmission. It's an 8-speed auto, and it is very, very smooth, but this one also has paddle shifters, whereas the Telluride did not have any.
The reason for that is the Telluride had a normal shifter, but this one has the button style shifter.
Yeah.
So if you needed to switch gears for towing or whatever, you would use the shifter for that, and this one you use the paddles.
And then also, since I'm speaking about the steering wheel, this one is kind of a 3-spoke. It's like a dual 4-spoke kind of thing. I prefer the steering wheel on this one to the Telluride.
Yeah, the Telluride kind of came out like this.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a preference thing, whatever. And actual handling and all that stuff, it does handle quite well for what it is, like I said. It's very smooth over potholes. The damping is very, very good. This also has self-leveling rear suspension.
So if we're towing something, it'll help bring the back up.
What would we tow?
Jet skis?
2 of them? Cut to the clip!
So this can tow up to 5,000 pounds, which is at least 2 jet skis, so we're happy.
Exactly, and that is again the exact same as the Telluride. And the steering feel is very light. It firms up a little bit in sport mode, but this thing is not sporty and it's not meant to do that, so it's completely fine in comfort.
And then we also have smart mode.
And then we also have eco, and then we have snow. But in Canada, we have 2 additional modes.
Mud and sand.
Yeah, so the Americans did not spec those 2 modes for some weird reason.
I guess this is the international spec that we get in Canada.
Exactly.
Anyways, it does a bunch of cool stuff to get you out of those sticky situations, which you'll never get in anyways.
Pretty much.
But we do have diff locks and stuff like that too.
Yeah, we actually have a button for it, and then snow mode changes how it reacts. Mud mode locks the diff in about 50-50, and sand mode is a full differential lock because this is all-wheel drive. And the lowest trim is front-wheel drive.
So let's do a couple tests before we get me into the driver's seat.
Like what?
The visor test.
All right, let's do this.
3, 2, 1.
Hey, Straight Pipes. Beat you to it. Oh, I'm in a Hyundai Palisade.
Of course.
Oh, Mike already did it.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Spoiler alert.
Shout out Micah.
We got a cup of the whatever coffee they gave me, and it fits into the best cup holder ever.
Let's talk about these cup holders.
You push the button, bam! Slides right out.
If you have your fingers there, it genuinely hurts.
It's very impressive. It's the coolest, gimmickiest cup holder, and I absolutely love it.
And depending on the trim, what do we have next to the cup holders?
We have a wireless charger.
That is a ridiculous spot for the wireless charger next to your coffee.
Is it as bad as the USB next to your coffee in BMW?
I think so.
What you thinking? Anyways, more about this stuff later. The last test before I drive.
What's that?
Box test.
All we've got is one cooler with us.
My turn to drive?
Yeah.
Let me just click the button to adjust my seat only while in park.
Yeah, so that's a Hyundai Kia thing. It's actually really annoying. You can't do it when you're driving.
You can adjust the seat while you're driving, but pushing the preset button will not put your seat back. We had that issue in the comments before.
You can't save it and you can't change it.
Launch from a stop.
It's decent off the line.
Decent up to about 30 miles per hour, whatever that means in Canadian.
Yeah, here it is in Canadian.
So this can come in a 7 or 8 seat.
Yes, it can, and we have the 8-seat bench seat.
So the one we're driving right now does not have the captain seats in the middle, and it doesn't have the big sunroof in the back.
No, so this is the second from the top trim. The top trim is the ultimate.
What's cool about the third row is you can actually lean your seat back with a button.
Yeah, so they recline in the third row, which is pretty impressive. But the most impressive thing to me is that there's actually buttons for them to electronically lower and raise from the trunk.
Yeah, the Telluride did not do that.
No, that's like a super luxury feature found in like cars like the BMW X7.
It does have a decent amount of room for someone like me to sit in the back, but in the literature they said it's easier for youthful people to get into the back seat.
Young at heart.
Young at heart, yeah. So I think that means no old people.
That means old people.
Old people who have good joints.
Yeah.
It is tricky to get back there, but they do have some handles and stuff to get in there, which helps.
So they added these grab handles on the side to make it a little bit easier to get in and out.
I'm still team minivan if you got to go 7 or more.
Of course.
And then in the middle row, we have peasant blockers.
Yeah, we do, which is always nice to see.
And then you can get cooled seats in the middle row as well.
Yeah, and the top trim with the captain's chairs.
And that brings us up to the front.
Do you want to talk about this gauge cluster first?
I want to show a general shot because it looks so nice, especially in this white trim we have.
It is really nice, and then depending on the trim levels, it completely changes things. One of them looks like a yacht.
Yeah, I think the ones that are whiter and creamier look a lot better than the black ones, but they all look very nice.
I do like the black one, it's just typical black, but the one in the white with the yachty interior, Lil Yachty, that's my favorite.
So let's get to the gauges. This does not have the full digital screen that we're driving right now, but the other one we drove earlier does.
So there's actually 3 different types of gauge clusters that you can get, which is kind of crazy. They must be losing money on that somehow.
Yeah, I feel like they should all go with the full digital cluster, but let's start with the full digital cluster.
It looks really cool. The graphics are really cool. It's just a little bit laggy.
So every time you go from different modes, it's got the coolest animation. I think the coolest in the whole car business.
If you go into sport mode, it's like, bam, you're in sport mode.
But it's got lag.
Yeah, it does.
It's got way too much lag for how cool the animation is.
And the second from the top trim, which is the one that we're currently driving, does not have any lag, and it's really smooth.
It's the normal Hyundai style where we've got the tack on the left, the speedo on the right, and then we can put our speed and all our modes in the middle.
And we also have the blind view monitor as seen on the Kia Telluride, but on the gauge cluster with the top trim, it actually changes your bubbles on the left and right.
So on the left, you've got your speed, which makes perfect sense. And on the right, you have the reverse tack BMW style.
Yeah, that's a little annoying.
But it is forgivable because we are not driving a sports car right now.
How did you just say forgivable?
Forgivable.
Was that a British accent?
I don't know. If this was a Veloster N with a digital tack that went backwards with no shift lights, I would be straight rattled.
And if you don't have the top trim, it puts that camera right in the middle and then splits the screen basically. And let's talk about this infotainment.
It is the same infotainment as the Kia Telluride.
Yes, it is.
Watch that video.
It does have Apple CarPlay. It does have Android Auto.
It does have rewinding satellite radio stations, but
It does not have Tune Mix.
No, I asked about that. They said they're working on it. I'm sure everyone's working on it because it's such a great feature.
Or everybody's just telling you that, just so that you don't keep asking everybody.
I don't blame them. Story of my life.
And this one has 2 features called Driver Talk and Quiet Mode.
So driver talk pretty much lets you yell at the kids in the back.
Just like the Honda Pilot, I believe.
And if you need to see those little brats in the back, we've got a fold down mirror right up here. Now let's get into all this center console and button stuff.
I do like the layout. It's very simple, very clean. Changes completely from the Telluride because that was all gloss black. And there's like no gloss black in here, other than the actual gauge bezel housing, which also has this silver trim at the top, which is bothering me because it reflects on the top of the windshield and I always see it.
And I have had no issues with it. However, I understand that you would be bothered by it.
Back to this stuff. We've got heated and cooled seats depending on the trim and a heated steering wheel.
And what's cool is when they get rid of the cooled seats, they don't give you fake buttons. They just make the heated seat button wider.
Yeah, it's really nice.
And having no physical shifter really opens up this area.
Yeah, and I don't miss it either.
And then we've got our HVAC controls, which are super easy to use.
And above that, we have our infotainment controls. We got a volume knob and a tuning knob, and they are very high quality.
But on the top trim, we've got, I guess, illuminated buttons that are beveled out.
Yeah, and it's actually hard to see in daylight a little bit.
The sun reflects all weird, it's hard to read, but in this trim, it's just painted on and it's so much easier to read.
It is better.
So there are better things about lower trims.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, if that's your deciding factor, I wouldn't make that your deciding factor.
And then down here, we've got a scroll wheel for our mode selection, which is very luxurious. But what's cool is, in the American version, we don't have mud and sand, but they space out the things more. So in the international version, it doesn't look out of place or anything.
Yeah, it's really good how they do that kind of stuff, just like they do the blank buttons, where they don't actually do blank buttons.
Except for no 360 camera on this one.
Yeah, they could have made a really big parking button for this one.
And then the storage stuff in our armrest area. Like we said earlier, you're gonna spill coffee on your wireless phone charging.
Yes, you will.
But it's worth it for those gimmicky cup holders. But what's also cool is there's a pass-through from this section that goes all the way down to the bottom. So you've got a lot of room for stuff down here too.
It's the most hidden pass-through I've ever seen. And there's a lot of soft touch everywhere, really nice materials. It feels really nice to touch everywhere, and even the seats are super comfortable. And one thing that I noticed is the glove box latch has this really nice textured metal looking plastic thing. It's really fancy.
And it's pretty much the same as the e-brake.
Yeah, which is like way on the left side.
It's just luxurious.
It is. Like, it's a really nice interior.
Oh, another fun thing about this car. It has different modes for opening up the trunk.
Yeah, speeds. So it can go from 0 to open in about 6 seconds or 4.5 seconds.
They're both pretty slow though.
They are. But I think it's the fastest in the industry. At least that's what they said for the 4.5 second
It's just funny
one.
that they added
Yes.
speed options to that.
Yes.
And then I think it's best to end this off with the highway driving assist, which is what we started on in the Telluride. So unlike older Hyundais, the lane keep assist doesn't work all the time. You need to be in cruise control for it to really work and keep you in the center.
But when it's on is when it really works well.
Yeah, it does a great job of keeping you in your lane, but the best part is when you're on an actual recognized highway by the nav system, it keeps you locked in and doesn't ask you to put your hands on the wheel for like the longest amount of time.
And apparently they're adding more highways to the system, so eventually it'll just keep getting better and better.
It's kind of like Super Cruise without a camera that watches you.
Exactly. So it can go up to like 2-3 minutes at a time. Like we've had the Telluride up to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's my favorite lane keep in the industry right now, all around.
Yeah, same here.
All right, Jacob, hit me with the price.
Starts at $38,499 in front wheel drive trim,
Canadian.
and it goes all the way up to $53,999 for the ultimate all-wheel drive.
I think the top trim is the trim to get. It's so nice in here. Like you get that big sunroof and stuff.
Yeah, and this is actually priced lower than the Kia Telluride, but the Kia Telluride has all the stuff in the upper trims. So this one is more comparable to all of the upper trims in the Telluride.
So we've driven a lot of the competition, the Honda Pilot, the Atlas.
The CX-9, the Ascent.
We said we like the Kia Telluride more than all those. I think this is tied with the Kia Telluride.
Exactly. It's based on looks for me. Like that's the differentiating factor between both of these if you're gonna choose, because they're pretty much identical.
I am suckered by those amber headlights on the Kia Telluride, but I think this is its own special, awesome look.
This is a more luxurious look. So if you're looking for something that looks more luxurious, you gotta pick this one because all the interior stuff is also a little bit better.
So let us know in the comments, what do you like more, Kia Telluride or Hyundai Palisade?
Or do you like any of the other ones and we are completely wrong? Let us know. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell.
Patreon.com/TheStraightPipes, join our YouTube membership, and Teespring for cool shirts.
Merch!
I'm Yuri.
I'm Jacob.
And we're going for a drive. Don't forget to subscribe.
Subscribe right now. Subscribe. We didn't do that.